Tonight on Reporting Scotland. Sacked from her ministerial post before she's even in the job. The MSP punished for writing an offensive blog. Parts of Glasgow School of Art will have to be demolished after a survey finds some walls are close to collapse. Police chiefs say if Donald Trump comes to Scotland, they'll need 5,000 officers on duty at a cost of £5 million. Dozens of firefighters battle a wildfire in West Lothian as temperatures in Scotland hit record highs. And we join the surfing course that's helping young people with mental health and other problems.
In school I was quite a trouble kid and I used to get kicked out a lot. But as soon as I started the Wave project, I've not been as troublesome.
Good evening. Nicola Sturgeon has had to sack one of her new ministers before she was even confirmed in office by Parliament. Gillian Martin has been removed as the Education Minister because of inappropriate comments in a blog she wrote 10 years ago. She apologised unreservedly, but opponents said the comments were shocking and suggested the row posed questions about the judgment of the First Minister herself. This from our political editor, Brian Taylor.
Former college lecturer Gillian Martin named only yesterday as the new Education Minister. Overnight, a blog she wrote in 2007 is published by The Times. It satirised an obsession with social inclusion in colleges, referring to hairy-knuckled, lipstick-wearing, transitional transgender ladies. Today, the new ministerial team arrives to face a vote by Parliament on their appointment. Ironically, many of the MSPs are wearing rainbow ties to support the campaign for inclusive education, transgender among others. Questions pursue the First Minister.
Have you withdrawn Gillian Martin's name?
As Nicola Sturgeon enters the chamber, news breaks. Gillian Martin is off the list. Labour's Richard Leonard says the blog first emerged in the press 2 years ago. That means, he says, the First Minister knew about it.
This is not just about the judgment of Gillian Martin. First Minister, this is about your judgment, isn't it?
First Minister.
Nicola Sturgeon says she wasn't fully aware of that blog and says she'll review her appointment.
This content, however ill-advised it may be, does not reflect the views of the person that I know in Gillian Martin. However, the content does merit my further consideration, and I will therefore not ask Parliament to approve this appointment until I've had the chance to reflect further.
But Jackson Carlaw of the Tories reads out another blog by Gillian Martin from a decade ago.
She said American Jews tip okay, but only if you're absolutely busted your hump and everything was faultless in the extreme. American blacks don't tip at all or tip next to nothing, to be avoided. I'm sorry, that is shocking.
The First Minister's face tells the story. She wasn't aware of those comments before today. This afternoon, the First Minister confirmed that, upon reflection, Gillian Martin definitely wouldn't be a minister. Ms Martin issued a statement herself apologising unreservedly and saying that the content of those blogs from 2007 didn't represent her views then or now. Final thought. One of the blogs from a decade ago was headlined, "This next post may get me sacked." Turns out she was right, eventually. Brian Taylor, Reporting Scotland, Holyrood. Surveys have shown there's a danger that parts of the fire-damaged Glasgow School of Art are likely to collapse. As a result, work to dismantle sections of the building will begin in the coming days. Meanwhile, the Scottish Government has announced increased support for residents and businesses affected by the fire. Aileen Clark reports.
The image that will stay with Glaswegians and art lovers, the Mackintosh building by the Art Deco architect who stamped his style on the city, had become a devastating inferno. A blaze more vicious, more extensive than the fire that ripped through it 4 years ago. From the first pictures which emerged of the gutted building, questions began about how much of it would remain standing. The City Council said after extensive surveys, they've found now that there's substantial movement in the walls, meaning a sudden collapse is not just probable, but likely, and so sections are going to be taken down.
The building will not improve It will continue to deteriorate, and therefore the risk of collapse increases as days go by. There has been significant damage and significant movement in the building, and as those matters continue, unfortunately that increases the risk of collapse.
Taking down those parts that are at risk of collapse is a difficult operation in a building right in the heart of the city. The back wall of the MAC near Sauchiehall Street is the worst affected, but there are problems on the east and west gables too. The art school management has been involved in the decision, and I asked its director what he thought would remain standing.
I suspect the front elevation will be left standing, and I suspect some of the elevations will be left standing, but they might only be left standing at a first floor level. And we're very keen to get that building stabilised as quickly as possible and as safely as possible, because it's only by doing that that we can get all of the businesses and all the residents back in place who've been disrupted.
Almost 2 weeks on from the blaze, the fire investigation team is still on site, trying to establish the cause and where the fire, which also engulfed the O2 venue next door, actually started. Now, the plan to work out just how sections of this building can be taken down safely, well, that's being worked out at the moment, and that operation should start within the next few days. But even though there are more than 30 homes affected and 40 businesses around here, and I understand it will be months before all of those people are back in their properties. Aileen Clark, reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
Policing a possible visit to Scotland by President Trump next month would involve 5,000 officers at a cost of around £5 million. That's according to Police Scotland. Interim Chief Constable Ian Livingston said contingency planning was already underway, with rest days cancelled and shifts changed for many officers. Katrina Renton reports.
Demonstrations at the G8 Summit of World Leaders in 2005. This was the last time we saw policing on this scale in Scotland for a political event. If President Trump were to visit his Turnberry golf resort next month, the Scottish Police Authority heard today potentially a third of Police Scotland's 17,000 officers would be required.
But I have concerns both about the amount of cost, around £5 million, and the potential or the concern I have about where, if at all, Police Scotland will be able to get some support for what is clearly a significant additional cost on normal policing.
The last time Mr Trump went to Turnberry, he wasn't president. And on his own golf course, it was his own security that dealt with demonstrators at his own cost. This time, it will be the public purse that picks up the tab.
Even before any visit to Scotland by Donald Trump has been confirmed, demonstrations are being planned. One is being organised for here in George Square, backed by a coalition of groups, among some trade unions and some political parties, including Scottish Labour and the Scottish Greens.
Who do they think should pay for policing the visit?
It clearly needs to be a UK government matter. The Home Office should step in, stump up those costs. It should not be falling on hard-pressed Scottish public services. If the Home Office refuse, then I think there's a good case for landing the bill with the toxic Trump brand itself.
Officers from other forces across the UK were drafted in to support local police at the G8. Tonight, Downing Street said about a possible Trump visit to Scotland that they would consider requests for additional financial support if forces needed it, and that happens often for major events. Katrina Renton, reporting Scotland.
The Prime Minister admitted she wants a faster pace on Brexit when she met her European counterparts in Brussels today. Theresa May is facing extensive criticism for Britain's Brexit timetable as she struggles to balance her divided cabinet. The Scottish Government says staying in the single market and customs union is the solution to all the problems. From the Belgian capital, our political correspondent Andrew Kerr sent this report.
No one rushes on the red carpet, but Theresa May is being told to hurry up. Here's the under-pressure Prime Minister ready to face down her critics in Brussels. She admitted the Brexit timetable needs to speed up.
I look forward to talking with fellow leaders about the very good progress we've made on the withdrawal agreement and looking forward to securing our strong future partnership, which I believe is in the interests of both the European Union and the United Kingdom. I think both sides are keen to continue that work at a faster pace than we have done up till now, and certainly we would welcome that.
The Irish Taoiseach has been critical.
So what I'd be saying to Prime Minister May is that we all need to intensify our efforts now. All of us want there to be a deal. We need a deal. Europe needs a deal. Britain needs a deal too.
Meanwhile, the Scottish Government has their own solution.
An answer to lots of the problems which they present is to say the sane thing, well actually the sane thing is to stay in the EU. And a lot of the papers that they publish over the last 2 years have indicated that. But if that's not going to happen, then the sane thing is to be in the single market and the customs union.
But that doesn't work with the UK's so-called red lines. Britain and the Prime Minister are isolated. It wasn't always like this. Half an hour outside Brussels lies the site of the Battle of Waterloo. The Dutch and Germans joined forces with the British and they defeated Napoleon 200 years ago.
During the Battle of Waterloo was the last time that the British and the French were against each other, and that's very important. Europe tried to be organized, more and more organized, and then the French and the British could work together.
Unsurprisingly, the Scots played a key role.
The Scots were crucial to the victory of the Allies. Why? Because the Scots defended Hougoumont, and they kept defending Hougoumont, and they prevent the French not to come to the rear of Wellington.
Tonight, kisses before the kick-off, but Theresa May will try to convince her European colleagues that she's winning the battle in her cabinet as she sets out her Brexit vision.
Well, Andrew's in Brussels for us this evening still. Andrew, the Prime Minister got her shirt there. Is it fair to say the locals are more interested in the match with England than the EU summit?
Yes, that's right, Sally. Here in Brussels, attention is turning from politics to football as England take on Belgium in the World Cup this evening. And you saw Theresa May receiving her red shirt from the Belgium Prime Minister. She won't be watching that match, though. She'll be updating her European colleagues on progress or lack thereof on Brexit. If we go back to our visit to Waterloo, Napoleon was wanting a victory dinner in Brussels on the evening of the battle, where the Duke of Wellington put paid to that. Well, at the dinner this evening, it won't be a victory dinner for Theresa May. She's looking particularly isolated at this summit. Sally.
Andrew, thank you very much indeed. Andrew Kerr there in Brussels. A bus driver who caused the death of a Rangers fan by dangerous driving has been jailed for 5 years. 49-year-old Callum Phillips had denied killing Ryan Baird by causing an accident near Kilmarnock in October 2016. Mr. Baird, who was 39, died at the scene from injuries to his chest and abdomen. He was travelling to Glasgow with the Nith Valley Rangers Supporters Club to watch his team play Partick Thistle. Scotland's having another day of blazing heat. Firefighters have been battling a wood wildfire in woods near Fauldhouse in West Lothian, and temperatures have triggered speed restrictions on rail routes. Glasgow is one of the hot spots, and Katie Hunter's at the city's Botanic Gardens for us. Katie, oh, it looks nice.
Sally, it's been a glorious day here in the Botanics. Hundreds of people have been out enjoying the sunshine, many of them, though, sitting in the shade, because Glasgow has had its hottest June day on record at 31.6 Celsius. But while many people have been lapping up the warm weather and enjoying it, it has brought some problems, as Graham Stewart reports.
It's the kind of scene you'd expect in the western United States. But this is West Lothian, Scotland. Woods ravaged by wildfire as gorse, bush and peat burn deep into the ground. A difficult and challenging fire in difficult and challenging terrain. Since last night, more than 50 firefighters have been on the scene near the village of Fauldhouse. At one point, more than 200 metres of woodland was alight. And it's not been the only incident that firefighters have faced in recent days and weeks.
Most of these fires start with some form of human intervention. Some of them are malicious, sadly. Many of them are accidental, often caused by careless discarding of smoking materials, through careless use of campfires and barbecues very commonly.
The heat's also played havoc on the railways, leading to speed restrictions and cancellations. Some passengers think they've heard it all now. Too wet, too cold, and now too hot.
We are unfortunately seeing rail temperatures at levels that we've never seen before, certainly in my experience.
which causes issues where it reaches a certain point and we do need to put speed restrictions onto trains to lessen the chance of the track buckling. You'll see at Central we paint a lot of rails white to try and help out, to reflect some of that heat back.
It's not the only metallic surface that's been melting in the heat. This was the roof of the Glasgow Science Centre, as a supposedly weatherproof membrane turned to a sticky black goo. Some heat damage is unavoidable. In other cases, it's down to human carelessness. But when the sizzling weather brings such hazards, sometimes the only thing for it is to chill out and just relax.
Well, there's been plenty of relaxing and chilling here in the Botanics today. It's still almost 30 Celsius, which at this time in the evening, at this time of year, is a real novelty. And for anyone who's finding it a little too warm, temperatures are expected to drop slightly over the coming days.
Thanks very much, Katie Hunter. You're watching BBC Reporting Scotland. It's just coming up to 14 minutes to 7. A reminder of tonight's top story. Sacked from her ministerial post before she's even in the job. The MSP punished for writing an offensive blog. And still to come, we join the surfing course that's helping young people with mental health and other problems. In 70 years of the National Health Service, Scots have pioneered treatments that have helped save and improve millions of lives all over the world. Scotland's former Chief Medical Officer says the next big breakthrough for public health in Scotland will be in challenging poverty and inequality. Our science correspondent Ken MacDonald has been looking into innovations past and future.
How does it work?
Scots have led the way in creating many medical innovations which we now take for granted in the NHS.
He starts sucking and a light appears.
Ultrasound was developed in Glasgow.
Patient is placed beneath the probe.
Magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI scanners, pioneered in Aberdeen. This museum piece was an innovation once.
In the iron lung, the patient's body is placed in an airtight box.
The iron lung helped people with polio by doing their breathing for them. Now we rely on vaccines to prevent polio.
Vaccination and immunisation have transformed a number of diseases, things like polio, smallpox and so on, that were killers. They've been controlled through vaccination and immunisation. The interesting thing is that was the era of the big doctor. In the old days, were very influential in deciding
The operation has to be done.
what was going to happen in the hospitals. What we've seen was a shift in the way the health service was run.
All countries which have a National Health Service or a substantial part of their healthcare in National Health Service are in difficulty.
When Mrs Thatcher arrived, she had this ambition to run the health service in the same way that you would run a supermarket, for example. Any new drug has to be assessed for its cost effectiveness and so on. You know, we're here to help people who are sick, and anything that gets in the way tends to irritate doctors.
If we look back 70 years to the founding of the NHS, heart disease was Scotland's biggest killer. Now it's cancer.
But statistics can be deceptive. One of the reasons cancer is Scotland's biggest killer is that the NHS has wiped out or controlled other diseases.
Improved treatments mean overall mortality rates are falling. People are living longer, even with incurable diseases. So what's the next big advance for the NHS? It's not a new drug or device, it's big data. At the University of Glasgow, Professor Ian McInnes is leading a project to create the world's biggest data bank of people with stuff like arthritis, lupus and liver disease.
Big data is the ability to compute large numbers of data and bring rational, sensible understanding of those data, bringing together arthritis doctors, skin doctors, liver doctors, lung doctors, all sharing their data, looking for common pathways that drive immune-mediated diseases, potentially looking for common solutions. We want to move away from the days of being given medicines on the basis that they might work. Precision medicine is going to combine big data, computing science, with the most advanced sequencing biology that you could ever imagine, put the two together and we can potentially choose the right medicines for people to be given at the right time.
But amid all this good news, mortality rates are not falling equally, and that leads us to the biggest underlying cause of ill health in Scotland, the one for which the NHS has yet to provide a cure. That's because society will have to tackle it. It's poverty.
I would like to think that we'd be ahead of the curve in terms of thinking through the social determinants of health. If Scotland was able to demonstrate to the rest of the world that inequality can be reversed, it would be monumentally important.
Professor Sir Harry Burns ending that report by Ken MacDonald. In the last few minutes, it's been announced that BAE Systems has won a contract with the Australian government worth up to £20 billion. It'll involve BAE Systems building 9 British-designed Type 26 warships in Adelaide, but much of the design work will be done on the Clyde. Surfing is being prescribed to young people suffering mental health and other problems. 2/3 of those attending the East Lothian project have been referred by support services. Maura Kinneborough has more.
The focus is firmly on fun, but surfing's also proving a popular remedy.
When you're lying on your board, where should your toes be?
No matter how cold the North Sea,
chicken wings. Oh, show me your
they're
chicken
here,
wings.
spring to autumn.
I really enjoy it and I think it's amazing. I found it very tricky to stand up at first. Then when I kept going in, I found it easier and easier.
The thinking is surfing can increase self-esteem and reduce anxiety.
It has a real impact. It works. It's a fabulous thing. Just getting in the water, being in the fresh air, you cannot come out of the sea without a smile on your face.
Young people can be prescribed surf therapy to cope with a range of mental health and other issues. They can be referred here by a teacher, doctor or counsellor. Teaching's tailored to cope with each individual's needs. One-to-one support from volunteers and professionals. There's no pressure to perform.
Before in school I was quite a trouble kid and I used to get kicked out a lot, but as soon as I started the Wave project I've not been as troublesome.
I was had learning disability at the age of 14, but then autism at the age of 17. My music helps a lot with that, and coming here can really calm it down.
Over 100 young people have been helped here to build on what they can do, not dwell on what they can't.
It gives them a lot of confidence, their ability to know that they can do things if they focus properly onto things and don't get too distracted with anything else. And equally it can distract from the things that are maybe going on in their lives at home.
Demand is high. The charity's planning a second surf therapy site in Fife. Maura Kinneborough reporting Scotland, Belhaven Bay, East Lothian.
World Cup fever hits Glasgow this weekend as the Great Britain basketball team play 2 must-win games in a bid to qualify for their World Cup in China next year. Scotland's Kieran Achara will lead the team against Estonia tomorrow night at the Emirates Arena in his 100th GB appearance. The result's vitally important both on and off the field for British basketball, as Rona McLeod explains.
24 hours to go before the first of 2 World Cup qualifiers. It's Estonia tomorrow, then Israel on Monday, in a campaign which has not made for comfortable reading so far. Greece top the group with 4 wins out of 4. Then it's Israel and Estonia with 2 wins apiece. With only the top 3 progressing, GB must win their double-header to have any chance of qualifying. The team led by Scot Kieran Achara has no funding from UK Sport, a situation they are keen to rectify.
We're just trying to show that we deserve to be there and be looked after, like the same as other teams and other participants who are competing in performance sports. So right now our only focus is making sure that we're competing at the highest level and preparing ourselves for all those situations.
Fellow Scot Gareth Murray is another senior member of the team. He believes they can overcome the downside of defeat.
It does hit your confidence a little bit, but at the same time, that's part of basketball. You're here to play games and you're here to win. Right here, we've had a good week of practice so far. We're looking for a good crowd. We want to win the game, so it'll be good for the crowd to see, but most importantly for us to going forward to make the next stage.
The next stage will be tough to reach, but the team's being led by a centurion. Achara will make his 100th appearance tomorrow night.
It's not something I could have envisaged. There's been times in the past that I've actually been cut from the squad and so forth. So I never knew when my last game was going to be. But I'm very proud of being the longevity, and I think it's all spurs from just that belief that I was willing to always give my best.
Both games tip off at 7:30. Achara and Murray hoping their home crowd in Scotland can cheer them on to victory. Rona McLeod reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
Timeline is over on BBC Two in just over half an hour's time. Shireen and Glenn can tell us what's coming up.
Tonight, we reveal the supermarket still selling energy drinks to children despite agreeing to a ban on sales to under-16s.
I've been speaking to Travis singer Fran Healy about a new film featuring the band set to premiere in Edinburgh. And
we have a special lip-sync tribute to the scorching weather.
That's Timeline, 7:30 BBC Two Scotland.
And it's time for a Scorcher update from Chris.
Sally, thank you. Hello, there certainly has been a scorcher right across the country, and Glasgow was the epicentre of that at 31.6 Celsius, which we round to 32, making it the city's warmest June day on record. Now, through the course of this evening and overnight, it stays dry and warm for many of us. Some low cloud across the Northern Isles, drifting down the east coast at times, but inland clear skies. Temperatures, though, in towns and cities holding in the mid-teens in places. An uncomfortable night for sleeping for some. Tomorrow, high pressure still with us. We still start to have an east-northeasterly develop, and that will continue to feed in some low cloud around some of these eastern coasts and perhaps affecting the Western Isles for a time. It will burn back and dissipate through the day, but some areas will see it lingering. For many, it's another dry and sunny and warm day. Not quite the 30 to 32 Celsius, but 25 to 27 in the west. Still warm, if not hot. Come further east, it will be somewhat cooler, especially where some of that low cloud lingers, high teens at times. And winds generally light and variable, though coming in from the east-northeast, bit of a drift. And through Orkney and Shetland, after a cloudy start, it should brighten for you. Rest of the afternoon into the evening, plenty of sunshine to end the day. A little more cloud once again in the east. Now, this weekend, if you've been looking out the window at work all week thinking, will it last? Well, actually, not too bad. Dry, sunshine and warm. So here we have the chart for Saturday. High pressure still with us, so it's largely dry, just the chance of 1 or 2 light showers in the northwest. Bit of low cloud around some of these eastern coasts at times, but generally dry with some sunshine for many. And in the west, temperatures up to around 25 degrees. Elsewhere, a little bit cooler than that, always fresher on the coast with sea breezes. And Sunday, more of the same, really. There will be some areas of cloud around at time, but equally some sunshine to enjoy, and temperatures again reaching up to around 25 degrees across parts of the west and the southwest. That's the forecast for now.
Thanks very much, Chris. Reminder now of tonight's main news. Nicola Sturgeon has had to sack one of her new ministers before she was even confirmed in office by Parliament. Gillian Martin has been removed as Education Minister because of inappropriate comments in a blog she wrote 10 years ago. She apologised unreservedly, but opponents said the comments were shocking. And that's Reporting Scotland. I'll be back with the late bulletin just after the 10 o'clock news. Until then, from everyone on the team right across the country, have a very good evening. Bye-bye.